Welcome to the Fiat Ministry Show, episode 130. Welcome everybody tonight. Really exciting guest that we kind of just had a communication through email. It's amazing. Sometimes you networking with people, and she asked to talk about her book, and I really was astounding just to look at the, not going through the whole book, but just to find as much as I could do as research as I could before the show. Michelle Davis is basically talking about finding hope on Vegas, and let's bring up the website. Here it is right now, and we'll also talk about the story of where she kind of had her son going through a situation on a bull, a 1,500-pound bull, mainly crushing him, and to survive through that. And it's a very powerful story of just prayer, and just taking everything as God is giving you, even the hurdles throughout your life, and being able to overcome them through family situations, personal situations, and anything that is happening in your life, in the sense of, are you kidding me? God, are you giving me this on my plate right now? I have this others, a family. I have, people that I care about that are either hurting or something that I'm hurting. So I think it's just a great way to, a book to share, that everybody has a story that might be, tough and hard at times, and going through life of, anything situation, and how do we overcome that with prayer, with other situations of family. I forgot to say before that little intro, to like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and go to our website. Tonight I can talk or get the comments on YouTube, but I cannot get anything on Facebook. I'm still fighting Facebook. So it's Fiat Ministry Network.tv/live. So you see that right now, Fiat Ministry Network.tv/live. You can go in there and comment, or go to YouTube and type in Fiat Ministry Network, and you can also find us live over on our YouTube channel right now. I apologize. We'll get the Facebook working. It's a one-man band, so you do as much as you can. But I do want to thank all the people that are supporting us and donating and helping us in any financial way in the past couple of days. And thank you for helping our Laura and Jennifer to do some other work with No Soul Left Behind, and being able to produce more. And it's tough. It's a a ministry we're always trying to do, improve and get better at our technology, but coming down to our faith. But it does cost some money to do this, so I appreciate all the support with Fiat. So I will go to a quick commercial. Always I like to share faithlifefamilywear.com. Always to check them out. Make sure you support their clothing, all the items that they sell on their website. Where Missy DeConti is a dear friend, and we really want to support her and everything that she does on that end of things, of bringing back a crest that is all about family and life and faith, and just enjoying all that. So faithlifefamilywear.com, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes, and we'll have Michelle on, and we'll go from there.
Clothing says a lot about a person. Fashion is an instant message, a silent statement as to a person's beliefs. What does your clothing say about you? Well, think of how we were warned in Fatima of the fashions that would displease God, and that the final battle would be on marriage and family. Now think of the disgusting pink hats, satanic symboled clothing lines for both adults and now children. To name a few, these are anti-God movements, don't kid yourself, being done through clothing. Faith Life Family Wear is a crested clothing and accessory line that promotes being pro-life, pro-faith, pro-family, and pro-traditional marriage, helping you to make a silent statement appropriate at both work and play. Some of our favorite cardinals, bishops, and priests proudly wear Faith Life Family hats and scarves, and you should too. Visit our website and read the About Us to see both of our crests. Learn the meanings behind them. We offer crests with and without symbols. Encourage your church, friends, and family to shop flfwear.com for the March for Life and for every occasion. We have tote bags that are great for Bible studies. We even have children's clothing and adult sizes up to 6XL. Remember, the more you purchase, the more that we donate to your favorite charity of choice at checkout. And unlike other companies, we make sure that our products are made by manufacturers that never use slave labor, because we value life from conception to natural death and everything in between. Put on the armor of God and wear clothing with purpose. Shop now at flfwear.com. That's faithlifefamilywear.com, and take a stand with style.
So faithlifefamilywear.com. Thank you for them and their support. And again, welcome Michelle to the show. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story, especially with your son. And just like I asked all my guests, just a little, background of Fiat, of going through. I know we were talking prior to the show. This book was kind of Fiat, and so you can definitely share that too. But if there's anything that you would like to share as a background, as a just finding your faith, as a cradle Catholic, and coming back, writing this book, if you want to share anything, that would be great.
Well, I'll start off as I was a cradle Catholic, and as I grew up, of course, I went off to college, and things changed, and you get kind of caught up in the world. And eventually, I never left the church or anything. I always went to church, but I was, kind of that Catholic that sort of believed what she wanted to believe and didn't believe what she didn't really want to believe. And that happened. I lived that way up until I was married and I had my second child, and I met a woman who was just totally in love with the Catholic faith and the church. And I call her the crazy church lady, because she, everything about her just radiated Christ and God. And I really grew to look up to her, and she taught me so much. She really filled in the holes of my faith that were missing. She just inspired me beyond any expectation. And through that, I guess you could say that was probably my first Fiat. And I just really started to change my attitude, and she would just feed me all kinds of books, and I just was devouring them, and I really grew in my faith. And so that led me to my second Fiat, that after, I don't know, it's probably about 5 years, my husband and I had an opportunity to move back to the hometown where we grew up, where both of our parents resided. And at that time, my kids were just getting ready to start school. And unbeknownst to me, the good Lord sort of told me to homeschool. And I said, this is a crazy, crazy idea. But I said, okay. And so here I am. I have 4 of my 5 children graduated and still saying yes.
Well, that's I mean, that because I know for a lot of the we've done a couple shows on homeschooling, and that's another. Yeah, I think that's another beautiful thing of what you were doing there. And I know my wife's siblings were homeschooled, and so we're very homeschooling is just a big part of Fiat, and just promoting that in the sense of it's how, you know, what you can, you know, share and teach to your children sometimes is doesn't have to be outside, and it's just, you know, if you're passionate and you have that way of doing it, because sometimes you can't do it, but to be able to do that and to have all of them, you know, other than all 4 or 5 of them all homeschooled, or
I have 5 children. I still have one who will be going into 8th grade.
Okay, so all of them.
My 4th one just graduated just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations! That's great. I mean, and I think, you know, the sense of doing this book and then having that as a Fiat. If you want to share like the background and, you know, kind of what happened, because it is a powerful, in the sense of a traumatic situation in your life and your son's life and your family's life, but I think you can also bring that and share that for other people to go through. We all have hard times and hard, you know, things going on, but God will give us the strength to get through. But give us, you know, a little background of finding hope on Vegas and everything that, you know, entails that.
Well, the story actually really starts with homeschooling, because through schooling, I learned to do the devotions, you know, to the saints, to Mary, to put God first in our lives as much as possible. But of course, just because I was enthusiastic about it doesn't mean my kids always were.
Yeah.
But it was through homeschooling that I deepened my faith. And really, that set the stage that prepared me for what was coming. Another thing that I just find very ironic is I had just really embraced an artist, Matt Maher. He had a song, and it just resonated with me. And it was called "Lord, I Need You." Mm-hmm. And my kids would get so sick of hearing that song, because at the time I just popped the CD into the vehicle as we were driving around, and they were like, really, do we have to listen to the song again? But again, that song just resonated with me when my world started crumbling. Yeah. And I just find it interesting that there's been so many, looking back, and really it wasn't until I started writing the book that I started looking back and realizing that there were so many coincidences. But really, they weren't coincidences. What I call them is God moments. And yes. God just literally was preparing me in so many ways for what was coming.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you said that. And nothing is everything is a God, you know, a gift and a situation that God is giving us, that sometimes we just kind of go through the motions. But even the heartaches of anything that's a situation, or just going and hearing a song and taking your kids, and I know how that is with 3. I'm not at 5 yet, but you know, it's just like I think sometimes that you're sharing your faith and being able to actually have them homeschooled is just a powerful way of sharing. You know, sometimes it's probably tough, you know, do we want to learn all these devotions? Do we want, I mean, the saints and everything? But to keep that driving into them is very important, and I appreciate that. You're doing that, and you did that. But what in the sense of that, where did the situation with the I know. Maybe share a little bit more with the book and all that, but go ahead with that.
So with homeschooling, my kids I have one daughter and 4 boys.
Okay.
And so, of course, my kids sort of, especially the boys, resonated with the sports. And so we were always involved in almost any sport you can imagine in our small rural area. And once they got to high school, they weren't allowed to play sports because it then was through the school. And so Nathan, so the book revolves around my son, Nathan. And he played football and he played baseball and he played soccer. But when he was in high school, they really didn't have an opportunity to play sports. And so Nathan had a bunch of buddies that were involved in a high school rodeo. And so they kind of got him interested in that. And there's 2 things. You could either be part of a high school rodeo, or you don't have to be part of any organization to be involved in bull riding, because you can do it through the local circuit. And so we had it's the Super Kicker Rodeo that would go to all the county fairs, and then they would also be welcomed or invited throughout the year to participate in other events. And so through this, Nathan would watch his buddies riding bulls or doing, there's different sports in the rodeo, but Nathan was very much attracted to riding bulls. I would say, is a little on the adventurous side. And so he just naturally chose that one. And at first we were like, my husband, Tim, and I were like, no, absolutely not. But with homeschooling, we became, we really tried to get our kids to try new experiences and to just find a passion and go with it. And after quite some time, Nathan finally wore us down, and we let him try it at the end of, I forget which year it was. He was 16. So at the end of his 16 year, that summer, we let him try it once. And I was terrified, as probably most mothers are, but I was really hoping that this would be the end, that he would, experience it and say, wow, this is pretty intense, I'm done. But of course that would not be. Actually, I have pictures from Nathan's first rodeo, and the smile on his face, the enthusiasm in his whole countenance, it was pretty powerful. And after seeing that and knowing that my husband and I were constantly saying, find a passion, we gave in and we let him continue to ride over the next year. And he did pretty well. His rides at the different events were fairly quick. Now, for those who might not know anything about bull riding, the goal is to ride on the back of a bull for 8 seconds. And in that time, you have one hand that's kind of latched with rope. It's kind of secured down to the bull to help you steady yourself. And then your other hand goes above your head and moves to help balance you. But that hand can never touch the bull at any time, at any point. If it does, you're disqualified. And so Nathan, I would say, during the actual competitions, he would ride for a few seconds. I know on his practice rides, he did cover 8 seconds, and he was improving over time. But again, it was a little too adventurous for me, and I was always so terribly nervous. It was almost, I don't know. I guess I always figured in my heart, I think I knew Nathan was going to get hurt, but I just never imagined what would what it was going to entail.
Yeah.
So the day of the rodeo, it was in August, and it was down in Elma, which is about an hour drive from us. I knew that the rodeo was coming. I knew he was going to ride that night. And I just had this overwhelming sense to go to confession that morning. I went to a parish that I typically would not go to, simply because I knew the parish that we had belonged to at the time only had confession in the afternoon, which I would not be able to go because we were planning on going to the rodeo. So I went to church, and sometimes the priest is there, sometimes it's not, because, you know, it could always be called away for whatever reason. And when I arrived at church that morning, it was fairly early. It was probably 9 o'clock. Nobody was there. And I was like, okay, no big deal. I'll just pull out my rosary. God knows that my intention was to go. And if I go, great. If I don't, I'll at least say my rosary. And so I was almost done with rosary, and the priest did come in, and he graciously heard my confession, and he gave me a penance. And so I went back to the pew I had been sitting in, finished my penance, finished up the rosary, and I was just kind of sitting, enjoying the quiet moment, because with 5 kids, I didn't normally get many quiet moments.
Yes.
And so as I got up to leave, I can't really describe it, but the best way I can describe it is I heard a voice in my head basically tell me Nate was going to be injured. And I was like, well, that's okay. He's done, then he'll be done riding bulls. We'll be okay with it, because I'm thinking a broken arm, broken leg. He had friends who had, you know, received broken arms. That's pretty common. Yeah. But none of his friends had ever been severely injured up until this point. And so when I left the church, I was like, that was kind of a weird moment, you know. Did I make it up? Was it in my head? I don't know. But I had this nervous feeling that, you know, and actually, as Nathan was getting ready to ride that afternoon, packing his gear up, I had never, ever once told him, please do not do this. But I did that day. I just looked at him and I said, Nate, you're too tired. You know, at 16, it was very common for Nathan to work, you know, 70 hours a week. He just loved working. He was working on a farm. And so it was very, very common that he would be running on E when it came to sleep. And that afternoon, I just said, Nate, you're tired. I said, just don't go tonight, okay? And he said, you know, Mom, I kind of don't really want to go tonight. But he said, I've got a lot of friends that are coming, and they're going to be there. So they're expecting me at the rodeo. And so with that, he gave me a hug, and he told me that he loved me, and I told him I loved him. And out the door he went, because he had to arrive at the rodeo before, you know, to get prepared and to be ready and find out what the schedule was going to be. So he left before I did. So later that, I guess it'd be an hour or two later, after my husband came home, we were getting ready to go to the rodeo. And I just had the sense that I just needed, it's a 3rd-class relic. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is, I don't know. Can you see it?
Hold it up a little bit. Yeah, hold it up a little bit. Yep, there you go.
Okay, so it's a 3rd-class Fatima relic. This is not the exact same one that I gave him that day, or that I had with me that day, but it's one in a packet, I guess. Okay. Anyways, it's a 3rd-class relic from Fatima, and I had never worn it before. It actually sat in my nightstand for about a year, and I was always afraid I'd lose it, so I never wore it. But that day, I just felt really compelled, like I just needed to wear that. And it's probably because I was still unsettled about, you know, what happened at church. So I went and grabbed it, and then we headed out. And like I said, it was probably about an hour drive, just shy of an hour drive, down to the Elma Fair. And so when we got there, it was a full house. It was packed. And my other kids went with Nathan, all but my daughter. My daughter was out of town. So my other boys had gone with Nathan. And so when we got up there, we met up with them. And we just sat and chit-chatted with a few people. And then all of a sudden, oh, the other thing I forgot is just by chance, the paramedic that was on duty was actually a friend of ours. And he didn't know we were going to be there, and we didn't know that he was going to be there. And I would say he was a very, very close friend of ours.
Okay.
And for people who don't follow the rodeo, there typically is not an ambulance on site. The rodeo, the Alma rodeo board or fair board had requested an ambulance, but they requested just a basic life support.
Okay.
But because our friend Brad, who was the manager, or the supervisor, sorry, because he decided to volunteer that afternoon to go to the rodeo, he had an advanced life support ambulance. And so, needless to say, everything was needed for Nathan. Mm-hmm. So after we met up with Brad, Tim noticed that Nathan would be up soon, and so we all positioned ourselves so we could get ready to watch him. And pretty soon he was on the bull, all ready to go, nodded his head. They opened up the gates, and out bounced Nathan on a bull named Vegas. And after a couple of seconds, it all happened really in slow motion for me. And but I could see that he wasn't sitting on the bull the way he should be, and I seen that he had lost his balance. And then the next thing I knew, the bull kind of threw him up, and he came down, and the bull's back hoof, slammed him into the ground. And it injured, or it hit in the stomach, in the abdomen area. Mm-hmm. And so it all happened so fast. You're like, did that really happen? Am I making this up? Well, I wasn't. And as I rushed over to find out what was going on, of course, Brad was there, taking care of him already. The rodeo, most people know them as rodeo clowns, but Nate would always call them bullfighters. The bullfighters helped him off. And by the time I got there, I had no idea what was going on because there was no blood. Everything, he looked fine. But by the time they got him to the stretcher, he had lost his vision. And I didn't know, but Brad was fully aware that Nathan was bleeding internally. And so they rushed him to the hospital. And by the time they got him there, they're just a rural hospital that just happened to be getting its certification for a trauma unit. It wasn't quite certified, but it was in the process. And because of that, they had some trauma equipment, and one of them was a rapid blood infuser, which they just happened to use the night before. And the ER nurse, said she actually had to pull out the directions and read how to run the machine. Wow. So she actually was prepped the night before, and so when Nate's case came in, she was ready for him. And they found out that he probably had about 4 liters of blood pooled in his abdomen, and a male body only, a male teenager only has about 5 liters of blood. So the fact that Nathan did not bleed to death was, in a sense, a miracle. The fact that Brad was there and knew to run 2 IVs and not call for a helicopter as he typically would have. There's so many little coincidences that happened that were out of the ordinary. And those are the things that saved Nathan.
Yeah. And as a God, everything that you were describing, there was a reason that Brad was there. I mean, everything, God was looking out, and you know that. I mean, as a Catholic, we know that we have, a guardian angel, God, that kind of thing of protecting us, and also our family, and to also have just everything that has that happened that evening was just amazingly, a blessing. That what just I just want to let everybody know we're talking with Michelle Davis about finding hope on Vegas.com is the website. And the book. You can find it at finding hope on Vegas.com, or you can go to Amazon, and we also have a link. And also, if anyone is watching on Facebook and has comments, we'll check them out. I cannot bring them up tonight, but I can bring up any comments through our website, fiatministrynetwork.tv/live, or go to the YouTube channel, Fiat Ministry Network, and you can find us there too. If you have any questions or comments for Michelle, that would be great to have anything. But Michelle, I mean, for how you were feeling that and going through, things were going slow with the, as the ride was going on. But after that, I mean, was things just going so fast that you processing and trying to take everything in, of knowing, how much blood Nathan lost, and still he is, at least fighting. How are you feeling? And I know, I mean, I could hear, I mean, I could just sense that, but I mean, was there some kind of a way to take this in and then say, okay, we're going to go through this, and God is going to help us, and with prayer? I mean, what was that, the next step that you were doing, and plus your family, your kids, your husband, everybody? I mean, was there, any kind of, that next step that we were trying to, what to do kind of thing?
Well, like I said, prayer was such an integral part of our life at this time that even in the ambulance, I started praying. I mean, it was the first thing really that I started doing when I realized that this was going to be a trip to the hospital. This was serious.
Yes.
But yet at this time, I had no idea. I had no idea how serious this was going to be. And so we get to the ER, and everything's busy, there's just chaos, but it was controlled chaos. Like, the nurses all knew what to do, but based on experiences before, I knew the more doctors that were in the room, the worse the situation was. And so when I realized that the ER was pretty much filled with everybody possible, I knew that this was bad. And so I went to the waiting room where the rest of my kids and some of their friends were. And I said, you guys, I don't know what's going on. It's bad. We're going to kneel and we're going to pray. And so right in the middle of the ER waiting room, there was a group of us, probably about 8 of us, and we all knelt on the floor. I pulled out my rosary and we started praying the rosary. And then when we finished with the rosary, we started with the Divine Mercy Chaplet. And all in that time, somebody would continue it while I popped up and I would go check and see how Nathan was. Well, Nathan was so critical. They couldn't find the bleeding. And so they knew that they had to get him to a trauma level 1 hospital. And so they knew they were going to have to fly him out, but they couldn't get him stable. So here he is, a PEDS case, and they don't have a PEDS doctor. And it's not common for just a doctor to go ahead and operate on a PEDS patient. My daughter is an ER nurse, and she said, Mom, we stabilize him and we get him out of there. But with Nathan, they had to make the call to try and open him up. Well, they couldn't find the source of bleeding, so they started packing him with lap packs, which are like gauze packs. They filled his abdomen with about 60 of them. And by the time the flight crew came, he was already bleeding through them.
Oh, geez.
He had used all the blood that was available at Alma. Just by chance, somebody earlier in the day the staff had plasma that was frozen, and so they set it out for it to thaw so that this patient could use it. Well, the patient had refused it. And so they had plasma available for Nathan as well. There literally is 2.5 weeks of all these little tiny things put together
Yeah.
that just happen to fall at the right place at the right time. Literally 2.5 weeks. That's why at the end of the book, I have about 13, what I call 13 miracles. And it's not like Nathan was healed miraculously in a moment's time. It was that all of these things, all these certain people were all lined up, and the events just perfectly orchestrated by the hand of God. Now, through all of this, even though I don't know what's going on, even though I don't know that the nurse is not, the flight nurse is thinking that Nathan's not going to make the flight, that he's going to die, he's going to bleed out before he even gets to the hospital. Through all this, my husband and I had called everybody, and we'd ask everybody to pray for Nate, and we asked them to call everybody they knew and say, just storm the gates of heaven. He's in God's hands. God's got him. Yeah. And so with all of that, when I realized how critical Nathan was on the ER, I had called my mom and I said, Mom, you have to dig out the Fiat prayer book, because there's the 3 beautiful prayers that in the Catholic Church you can say for those who are dying. And so I had requested those prayers to be said. And there's just so many things. And with that, I just kind of feel like that was the big moment of prayer. And then all of a sudden it snowballed into so many people praying. Before it was over, we found out that there was 22 people from 22 states praying for Nate, 7 different countries, let alone the 2 communities, the Gladwin County, all of Gladwin County churches, and Clare County, praying for Nate. So we had prayer warriors all over the place praying for Nate. And yes, maybe that had a great role in saving Nathan. I'm personally convinced of that. But something happened that I never dreamt would ever happen. And I attribute it to prayer. Tim and I, we were peaceful. There were so many times that night, the next 2 nights, that I kept saying, why am I not hysterical? Why am I not, in the movies, the mom goes hysterical. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. And I think it's because I think God was he just had me. He had me through prayer, just like he had Nathan. So prayer is so vital.
Well, and I think, with these kind of situations that, in different levels of everybody's lives, and knowing that what you were going through and your family and Nate was going through, these miracles that you were, seeing, was that kind of being talked about, like, with your husband, and you're kind of, you're seeing that, and you're kind of like, this is, incredible that this is happening, that just as something this terrible.
To be honest with you, we didn't know a good portion of all these coincidences. Okay. It wasn't until after I started piecing, and I actually started talking to people, that we became aware of what an outstanding set of events that was perfectly orchestrated.
Yeah.
For example, Brad, the paramedic, told me later that he had volunteered to go because he just didn't feel like finding somebody else to fill in. So he thought, what the heck, it's a nice night. I like the rodeo. I'll go. Mm-hmm. And, that right there made a huge difference, because, again, while I was researching the book, somebody told me, the supervisor, actually it'd be the ER manager, told me that Brad was probably the only paramedic that had enough experience to handle Nathan's case. So had there been somebody else, who knows?
Well, and I think, as people will read this book, and to take these situations of all the miracles and everything that happened, we're in the sense of, let's share that with what do you want to share, as someone that is reading the book, or as you're letting people know about the book, what do you really feel like you want them to get out of it? I mean, is there something that is a kind of a thing, that a topic, or something that will touch them after reading the book? I mean, just the story is touching. It's emotional, but what do you think you would like to share as they finish the book, that they take out of the book?
Well, at the beginning of the book, I listed quite a few, I guess, goals. But one of them is, don't ever underestimate the power of prayer. There's so many times when people will say, please pray for me. And no, I definitely realized a lot of people don't get a miracle the way we were able to get our miracle. But prayer is essential because it changes our hearts. And I believe that's how the Holy Spirit can, like the outpouring of the Holy Spirit is within us too, to pour out to other people. And I believe that my family was greatly calmed because of the prayers of other people. I think that we just underestimate it. There's so many things in the book that happened, and I'll give you one example. There were so many people. So later on in the story, there were so many people that were praying for us, and I felt compelled to go and pray for other people. So one lady came up to me and she said, I noticed you must have a really serious situation. We had met in the waiting room in the the second hospital, which is a trauma 1 unit, which is Butterworth in Grand Rapids. And she said, it must be a really serious situation. How's it going? And so I shared with her, what had happened, and that, Nate was still hanging in there. We didn't really know how it was all going to turn out, but Nate had at this time already gone through 2 critical milestones. And so because of that, you could say that Nate was trending in the right direction. And so when this woman befriended me and she reached out to me, I just thought it was pretty incredible, because she's a stranger, and, we had never seen each other before. And I was so caught up in what was going on that I probably didn't, notice her. Maybe she had shared the same waiting room with us, because, by now I'd been at the Grand Rapids Hospital for 2 weeks. And she shared with me that her husband they were considering taking him off life support. He had a head injury and had been without any movement, without any signs of, being able to live off of the life support. And so they had recommended that she consider removing him from life support. Well, I took a prayer card that I had, which is the Divine Mercy Chaplet card. I took that image to her and I explained to her, I'm Catholic and this is my go-to prayer for, difficult situations. Would you please take the image? It had been taped to Nate's bed. Would you take it? And, for whatever it's worth, my family will pray for you. And, we bestow the prayers that we're receiving, kind of like we pour them out for you too. I'm happy to say Patrick left the hospital. So the man that they wanted to consider, that, didn't seem to be able to live without life support, she came to me the next day and she said he actually moved his eyebrow. And then she came to me the second day and she said he moved his foot. And within a week, he was able to sit up. So I'm not saying I had anything to do with that. I'm saying maybe my fiat of being brave enough to go to this woman and say, hey, here's the Divine Mercy image. Let my prayers, surround you. Let everybody who's praying for me, let it be poured out to you too. And that's why I say I think the Holy Spirit works through us when we're prayerful people.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And Michelle, I just really just want to, it's just a beautiful how a story like that, and to kind of have that ripple effect, of prayer, of the body of Christ working in some sense of the words through a terrible situation that you're having, and that you're still motivated to try and help someone else out in any way. It just, that prayer card was all that God needed to kind of then get that ripple of prayer, and to, it's an amazing story. It's just, I love that, and I just want to.
There are so many of those stories in my story. It's just crazy. It really is.
Well, that's what I mean, in the sense of Fiats and saying yes, and also to hear. God is always working, even with the stuff. I'm not going to get into any other directions, but God is always working, and we just sometimes miss it. And to kind of stay in that the focus of prayer, and using that throughout what you were going through, and to share and to continue to know that, whatever situation would happen, God is in charge. And we were like, it's amazing how that is. And I just want to share a couple comments in the chat. Jennifer just saying, let's bring that up. That's a great, let's bring that up. I think it's saying absolutely. Let's bring that up. I'm going to move that up so you can see it. There it is. And so that's a dear friend, Jennifer, in the chat room. Absolutely, prayer is so powerful. Many times I saw the effects for Kyle, that's her son, many times. So, and he's going through a lot of, is bed ridden, and he's only 20, in his 20s, and just the situations that Jennifer had to go through his life, and to know that, it's just showing that how God is listening. Yeah, that's another great statement, Jennifer. We'll share that with everybody.
Well, I'll tell you another thing.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, she was good friends with a priest who I had known, but, I wasn't super close with them, but he's a fantastic priest, holy priest. And we would go to church whenever we could, whenever we could get over there. But at the time of Nate's accident, he actually had cancer. And when he found out that Nate was so critical, he told our mutual friend, excuse me, that he would offer up the last 2 weeks of his life for Nathan's recovery.
Wow.
So to Jennifer, I would say, truly, there is redemption in suffering, no matter what it is, whether the suffering you're going through or what your son's going through. Just keep that in mind, because you never know how God's going to use your suffering to help somebody else.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful said, Michelle. I thank you for that. I just want to, kind of get like, what is Nate doing now? How is he, and at the end, I know we're running about an hour. We'll probably cut it in a couple minutes. No, and it was a great, and thank you for everybody anyone in Facebook that's said in comments. We will share them to Michelle. I will fix Facebook doesn't like us right now, trying to get the comments and sharing the goodness.
Well, I have a picture.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
You can see it.
Yep.
So
wow.
Here's a picture of Nate. We were on the diocese did an article on Nate because it was such a crazy story. But Nate is doing fantastic. He suffered some serious complications. He had extensive nerve damage. He actually almost died another time during this whole process. Oh. But today, Nathan, through everybody's prayers, through the beautiful hand and mercy of God, Nathan has a full-time job. He's been attending school. He is 21.
Okay.
And this just about a month ago, he actually got engaged.
Oh, that's awesome! Congrats. So that's there.
One thing I did forget to mention through all of this, Nathan had been walking before the accident down a path that was pretty sketchy. He knew it, and I knew it. I knew that he was choosing a path away from God. And my biggest fear was losing my son in the state of mortal sin. And there's just so much more that could be said about this. A priest, we found a priest at like midnight to come in and minister last rites, which added a whole nother dimension to the story.
Yeah.
There's just so many things that God did that day. Well, really for 2.5 weeks that are actually remarkable.
No.
So anyways.
No, I appreciate that. That's a great point that we need to. I mean, I know there's a couple. Actually, Missy DeConti has a prayer, and I'll try to post it onto the for last rites, and I know that's something that is definitely when you're it's a situation. But to know that he is where he is at right now, and thank to God that he is, and to have a future, and thank you that he's now back, fighting in the sense of loving God and knowing that, and I think that's the thing that is so beautiful, is going through a situation that Nathan went through, and your whole family did, to come out and be even more, seeing so much more miracles, and seeing so much more that God is doing through other people, and in the sense of hearing these stories and miracles that you're sharing tonight. I know Jennifer is thanking you, and we'll put that up, because that definitely needs another congratulations on the engagement. So we'll put that back up. Congratulations, Nathan. God bless you and your mom. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. I appreciate that always for everyone that's watching. If it's okay, Michelle, to end in prayer. That would
Absolutely.
be great. Anything that you could, anything, final things. I know we do have links. It's on Amazon. It's on the website, findinghopeonvegas.com, or you can also email you at findinghopeonvegas@gmail.com. I just want to promote that. And again, if you have any final thoughts or any final prayer, that would be great. Thank you again.
Well, I guess if we could just think about, put ourselves in the presence of the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
and just say, Holy Spirit, thank you for all of the miracles that you give us in our everyday life that are obvious, and even those that are not very obvious. I'd like to ask that you bring peace to those who are suffering tonight with their own crosses, and we surrender whatever situation it is to you, and we know that through your goodness and your amazingness, that you can always provide the miracles that we need, and as long as we are open to them. And let's just close with a Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen. Father,
thank you very much, Kent.
Yes, thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer, everyone that is watching on Facebook. But we will check out the comments if you have any. Again, we thank you for all the support that you all did with just watching and supporting our shows. We also will ask, again, like us on Facebook, follow us, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter. We do have a Twitter account. I don't mention that as much as I should. But we are all on many platforms. We'll also be on Anchor.fm with many of the audio portions of the show. And again, we'll keep, just the summer going. We'll probably take a couple of weeks off at some point, but I think I'm really excited with everything that's going on with Fiat right now, and we'll just spread the word. Please support. We're trying to encourage all to say yes to Jesus Christ, and it takes. It takes a lot of work, but it's a rewarding work, and I really enjoy doing everything that we do on Fiat. So again, Michelle, thank you for your time, and we will see you next week on the Fiat Ministry show, encouraging all to say yes to Jesus Christ. God bless.